Hey guys, it's Aaron from Vector Health. I'm a physiotherapist here. So at the moment we're going to go through some ankle taping strategies, just some general support. You've got a couple of options here with tape. One is the rigid. This stuff doesn't like to stretch at all. Really good for strong support, tends to limit movement. So if you're needing to reduce that movement, that can be quite good. If you're just needing to add some general support, the stretchy dynamic K-tape can be a bit better. It's rock tape, dynamic tape, K-tape. It's got a couple of names. Pretty much any tape that has that little bit of stretch to it. Okay? Except when it comes to using the rigid, there's a couple of things to keep in mind. The glue on this can be quite reactive to people with sensitive skin. So particularly if you react to band-aids, certain types of bandages and that sort of thing, it can be an idea to use the Hyperfix. So that's the white tape that goes underneath the strapping of the rigid. The glue is just a little bit not as harsh on the skin. Skin doesn't react quite so bad to it. The skin still reacts to the white tape. There is another final thing that you can do, and you can get some adhesive spray. There's also sort of Skin Guard, which is a bit of a sort of like an alcoholic white, but leaves the same similar sort of residue on the skin, and that sort of just creates a film. One, the tape sticks better, but it also stops the skin sort of reacting quite so hard if you do get irritated. And particularly with the climates up here, with it being so hot and humid, the skin does like to react quite badly underneath the skin, get a little bit irritated, that sort of thing. So irritation often comes as sort of itchiness, burning, sort of ants crawling around over the skin, anything like that. If you do start getting that with tape on, just take the tape off straight away. If you're not sure, just pop a little bit of tape down in a place that you can sort of scratch and keep quite comfortable just for a couple of minutes and see if you react to that. If you don't, then chances are you're probably pretty good for the full tape job, which we will get into now. So we won't worry about the underlay, just because Nicole's skin does actually deal quite well with taping. So we'll go straight into the rigid tape. Now, what you can do is get two long strips. One, you're going to create an anchor point, sort of about 3 1/4 to halfway up the calf. That loops round. A couple of creases, if you get them, not too bad. If they're quite large creases, probably redo it, particularly if you're wearing sort of tight pants, tight socks, anything like that. It's just going to irritate the skin a little bit more. You want to reduce the amount of irritation you're going to be causing to the skin. Leg position wise, when you're doing the tape, ideally the leg comes up off the ground a little bit, but then the heel comes back. You want to find that neutral point of the ankle. What you do here is you come underneath the heel just in front, and then you're pulling up the side of the leg. As you can see, wasn't quite enough tape, so we'll do that again. So what you can do to sort of make sure you're not losing too much tape like I just did, you can use the back side of the tape, throw it around, guide your measure, see how much you need, then come back and pop it down. From here, more often than not, people have a tendency to roll on their ankles going in. So what you want to do, start on the inside of the ankle, pull up and out. Places to keep in mind, be cautious around that bone right at the base of the pinky toe, so you can keep following it down, and when it starts to cut back around, you don't want to be starting or finishing tape on that point. There's a bit of a nerve that hangs around there. There's some structures that we don't really want to be pushing on too hard, and if we are, and if it's really sort of focal on that point, it can get quite irritating. So you want a good chunk of tape going over that, so there's just some general pressure going through there. So start at the top, come down, decent amount of pressure looping under the arch, coming back up and over, ideally finishing up a little bit higher, so I missed out just a little bit there. Okay. That's a general one option. General number 2 is a figure 8 tape. So it's much the same there. This time it's usually actually easier if you keep the tape on the roll. Start down low. Come up and under, but this time you're passing in front of the foot. Come back around behind the leg. Behind the leg you can keep it fairly loose. The tension points you want to be coming, pulling hard under the ankle and then pulling hard back up and over. Come back down, loop around behind the ankle and then back up and over. And you can start that again. So essentially anytime you pass around or over, you loop. Tear it off. Can you move your ankle up and down for me? Still moving?
Yep.
Any points pinching?
No pinching.
No. So still make sure the blood and nerves aren't being pinched. So what you can do is pinch your toes, make sure they come back to pink. They'll go white when you push. Make sure it comes back to pink within sort of 3 seconds. If it's any more than that, take the tape off. If it's still taking more than 3 seconds after the tape's off and you've had it off for about half an hour or an hour, might be an idea to go right to the doctor and just get things checked out. Also, if it is being really tight, some points sort of at the top of the foot where that bone sticks up right on top of the foot can get quite uncomfortable in through there. So what you can do, just be quite careful, but get some scissors and you can give it a little bit of a snip along the top, just to allow that tape to stretch out over the top of the foot. But be careful you don't snip your skin along the way. Okay, so that's taping with rigid tape for the ankle. What we can also do is some tape with dynamic. It's much the same in terms of the first one. Sorry, that's quite harsh. A handy little tip for taking off tape. I'm being a little bit brutal today, but if you come and push the skin down as you're taking the tape off, it can be a lot more comfortable, particularly for guys with really hairy legs. The more you let that skin rip up with the hair, the more it's going to hurt. So try and hold the skin down and just rip the hairs out, be brutal with it. Okay, so dynamic tape for the ankle. Can be a similar sort of thing, so you'd use this one a little bit more for your plantar fasciitis type pain. You know, if you rolled your ankle and you needed that kind of support, you'd use the rigid tape because you want to restrict that movement. But if it's not so much the over movement that has done it as opposed to more potentially the mechanics need improving, or just certain muscle structures also need a little bit of help along the way, the dynamic tape becomes far more useful. So what you can do, measure it up to go from base of the pinky toe to base of the big toe, but you're looping around behind the heel. That's tape number 1. Tape strip number 2, we're going to get that loop coming back up under the heel again. And then finally a third bit of tape that's going to come from the big toe and go down the outside of the foot to about halfway. So measure from the tip, go to about half, cut from there. With that one, cut halfway in the middle of the tape, cut about halfway down, and we'll come back to that. So the first one, we'll go around through the back of the heel. I get you to lift your foot up for me. Good. Back down. So a little bit high here. That's just because I cut a little bit too much. About 50% stretch. Loop back around behind the heel. And follow it along the inside of the arch. You want to be right on the outside, so half of the tape's on top of the foot, half the tape's on the bottom of the foot, and loop the whole way through. Just trim off any bits that you don't need or that are sticking up in places that you don't particularly want sticking up. If you spin around so we can show the camera, we're getting roughly half on top of the foot, roughly half on the bottom, so we're following that whole lateral border of the foot. Okay, so that's strap number 1. Strap number 2 goes from underneath the foot. Then this tape, the tape on the back is really malleable, so you can tear it halfway. That just makes it a little bit easier to deal with the tape, but it's also very sticky to itself, so be careful. Come to the sort of halfway up the leg, about a 50% stretch. Come up and under, pass just in front of the heel bone. Back up and out the outside of the leg, keeping that 50% stretch on pretty much the whole way until you start and finish points. You start with about an inch of no stretch, finish with about an inch of no stretch. So that's point number 3 for the dynamic tape, point number 2, sorry. And then we're coming into point number 3, which is for the big toe. So the big toe, more often than not, we want a slight gap in between big toe and second toe. A lot of the time people's toes do tend to come together, particularly if you're getting those sort of bunions, anything like that. We want to pull it back out because what that allows us to use is the arch in our feet, and it will also take that pressure off. So particularly for you guys with a bit of plantar fascia. So once you've got your strips, get your client to spread their toes or spread your own toes, get a little bit of a gap, feed it down through, loop it down. You want the V in your tape to be along the outside of the foot, so both coming around the toe. From there, take the other bit off, get them to try and keep that separation going, and then follow the line of the outside of the foot again, going over that other tape. Then relax. As you relax, what you should find is there's still a little bit of a gap between that big toe and second toe. That means it's pulling out quite nicely and you're offloading those structures that need a little bit of offloading. So that's the 2 general sort of options for taping the ankle. We've got the rigid, we've got the dynamic. Taping shouldn't be a full-term solution. If you are needing to just tape after tape after tape just to keep yourself going, it might be an idea to pop on in. We'll have a bit of a look to see what's going on. Often it's actually nothing too serious, it's just a matter of switching things back on in the right way to give us the support that we need so we don't have to rely on the tape. Fold the tape over on myself, caught my arm here, that hurt a little bit. So that's folded over, that's not savable, we'll redo that. And blooper this bit. So get the tape, find the back side of the tape, you can reach around, try not to get it caught on yourself, a little bit off there, just go one more, oh you're kidding. Unsalvageable.